Well, we are excited to be here. We are doing our Real Talks at Hard Knocks. Got the production team, Mom and Dad, and we're going to get her done. Southern BC, late August, going for colored up bull trout and cutties. Unbelievable.
Tiny, tiny stream.
Such a small stream. Walking up to this body of water, I really didn't expect to see any fish in there. I was quite discouraged when we got here and we saw what it looked like.
We weren't exactly sure where we had to go, and we hiked down this side of this cliff, and then we get there. And you look at this little tiny thing, you're mad.
I was really mad.
There's no way there's any fish in here.
Well, the widest point of the creek was probably 10 feet.
It was insane.
There's no water at all. It was ridiculous. And late summer, we got up to that first spot, and I was just trying to figure out how I could fish this, and I was thinking I was going to be getting into very small fish, and I saw a very nice sized cutty come up and rise on a grasshopper, and I was like, oh, okay, I see what we're into here. I see, okay. So I tied on a big hopper, and I chucked it against that bank, and I smacked one right away, and he got off. And I was like, holy cow, that was actually a decent fish.
It was a decent fish.
And from that point on, I started looking at the water a little closer,
Yeah.
and I think you can see when I realized, hey, there's giant colored up bull trout in here.
Yep.
And you could tell the way that these cutties were feeding, you could tell that they were afraid of those bull trout. They'd come up, and you could see them come up. The water's crystal clear and the water's so small, you could see everything. So you'd see the cutties start coming up to the surface, and they'd come up, they'd grab the bug, and they'd turn right back down as fast as they could.
Yeah.
It was a very, very fast turnaround and down,
And
so
we
they
could
didn't get smashed by a bull trout from
You could
underneath.
see that, when you did hook into a cutty, then all the bull trout would come up to the
Yep.
cutty, and that poor fish probably think he's going to get eaten by jaws there. Some of these fish are pretty big.
Yep.
And those bull trout were all over it.
They were all over it, and sometimes it's a real. You want to enjoy the fight, but you gotta rush to get that fish out of the water so you don't damage it.
Yeah.
Just with those giant bulls that would come up and T-bone.
And you don't have any room to fight it either. And
Yeah,
it's
no room to
rocks.
fight it. Yeah. By the time you set the hook, the fish is either in front of you or it's,
Yeah.
or it's in front of you.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
One of the weirdest parts for me, I think, is you're seeing these fish rise very consistently, one after another. There's multiple fish rising at the same time, hitting these bugs, and I would tie on flies that any other body of water. You're like, that is a damn near perfect match of the hatch.
Yeah.
Chuck it out there, and they wouldn't turn for my fly. Those cutties would not rise on my fly at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Pretty tough.
Yeah, it was super tough. With the amount of fish in there and the amount of fish that we're feeding, I just couldn't get them to turn onto my fly. They knew the difference between the real bug and my fly.
Yeah.
Even though I thought I presented them pretty well.
It didn't help that it was crystal clear, and then even just being close, you had to cast from a ways back and get that
Yep.
shot, because they could see your shadow, they could see your silhouette.
They can see everything in a
absolutely.
water body like that. There's no room for error. Some of the deeper holes were probably only 5 or 6 feet deep, and that's the deepest water in that whole creek.
Yeah, and on that creek, I think we only went the whole thing maybe a kilometer as
Yep.
far as that we traveled. And I remember at one point you were on the one side of the creek, and I went to the top, and it was kind of the cut into the bank there, and it was a little bit of a deeper hole.
Yep.
And it was right after that rapid there. I
Yep.
think you remember the one I'm talking
Oh, yeah.
about. And that's when we almost first got there. So we hit that first little pool. You got into a little cutty there, or a nice cutty there.
Yep.
And then I crossed and then went up and over, and I'm filming you go across, and then I look down this pool, and I'm like, what the heck?
I did eventually pick up a very nice bull out of that spot.
Yeah, and the color on that thing.
Oh my gosh, it was probably the prettiest bull trout I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And that's just that system. That water system, it's known for some of the most colorful bull trout in southern BC, it's just ridiculous.
Really? Yeah, that was pretty wild to see.
100%. We've caught bull trout everywhere else, all times of the year, and we've never seen colors like that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I would say it's almost like shooting fish out of a barrel. We always catch
Well,
and
if
catch and release, but I was going to get to that. They knew exactly what they wanted. The water's so clear, it's so challenging getting close enough. It wasn't that easy.
No, it's not easy fishing at all. You think when you're swinging streamers over top of, probably 40, 50 fish in an outing,
Right.
and you only pick up 1 or 2 fish, that's tough fishing. Those fish are not turned on.
No, it's not.
And I honestly, I would say that those strikes that we did get were more so out of aggression, more so out of saying, get out of my face, and not so much feeding.
Yeah.
Because when those bull trout, they're not spawning yet, but when they're coming up those tributaries and up those creeks, their main concern isn't feeding.
Right.
Their main concern is getting up to those spawning grounds to reproduce.
Right.
The conditions still have to play out in your favor if you are to catch fish that are like that. Like,
Absolutely.
especially bull trout, they can be very picky sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes it takes drifting over the same fish 9 or 10 times before they come up and bite, and that just proves how picky they can be.
Yeah, you got to get it just right.
Well, here's the hiking into a tiny creek that we had no idea what was going to happen, and you know what? Here's to a success on said tiny creek.
The success on said tiny creek.